Hi everyone, welcome back to the Helen Olivia virtual workshops. My name is Lindsay, I'm the lead designer at Helen Olivia, and I'm going to be leading you in our Dahlia Daze workshop today. So you need to grab all your materials and follow along, and we can go ahead and get started. So actually, first thing I'll mention is you need your floral tools. If you don't have a pair of floral clippers or a floral knife, a sharp kitchen paring knife will do, or a pair of sharp kitchen scissors. You want something smooth edged, nothing serrated because you don't want to damage the ends of your stems. And we want to make sharp angled cuts on everything as we go. We've got a gorgeous full bucket of blooms for this class. And we're gonna get all of this into our vase. We have a big bag for our materials today. That's because we've got a large ceramic vase that we're gonna be using. And actually, let me pull that sticker off the inside. There's a tag on it. You can pull that off and pull the price sticker out. And then the other thing that you have in your bag is a large piece of chicken wire, which we're gonna be placing in our vase. And then you've got your formula sheet. And your formula sheet lists everything that we've got in our buckets, and you can follow along as we go. The dahlias we have are a variety of different colors. They're from our favorites at Linvale Flower Farm, and dahlias are a very finicky flower. They can be kind of bendy, flexible on the stems. If you break a dahlia, we have filled the buckets chock full of ingredients today. So if you break something, there's plenty more to fill your vase. We have kind of accounted for loss because dahlias can break really easily, but just be careful as we're going. And we're gonna go ahead and get started. So I want you to fill up your vases with room temperature water. You don't want anything too hot because it can damage the stems, and you don't want anything too cold because it can also damage the stems. Cold will shock your stems, hot will make things open and it won't give it as long of a vase life. So somewhere right in the middle, a little bit on the cooler side is totally fine. So once you've taken the time to fill your vase up with water, we are gonna grab for our chicken wire. And our chicken wire is large for this class because this vase is large, and we don't want our chicken wire sliding around inside. So when we've got a big piece like this, I'm not gonna make you roll it into a cylinder like I typically would for a smaller 5-inch cylinder vase. What we're gonna do is grab both ends by the smooth edges, and we're going to pinch it down, hamburger style. It is a square, so that's a little confusing, but pinch it down and then bend it over. Sorry, it's hard to see that with my plaid shirt. But basically, you're just gonna squeeze, squeeze, and then you're gonna shove that into your vase. It's not gonna be perfect, but when the chicken wire is in, you should have it level with the top of your vase. You don't want it sticking up because your stems will float up too high. And you don't want it too low where it's really, really balled up. So once it's in there, spread it out. Go ahead and take a second to spread it out. With dahlia stems and the other things we're using, we've got some pretty hardy stems. So you don't want to be forcing it into the chicken wire and damaging anything. So make sure you have a really nice open cage on the top of your vase where you're looking down into it, and no sharp edges on top. You want those sharp edges tucked to the sides of your vase so your stems aren't damaged by them. So once you've gotten your chicken wire in your vase, we're gonna go ahead and add our mini green. So we've got our new green hydrangea, and we're gonna remove the plastic on all of them. And then I'm gonna say this a lot during class, but we're gonna remove any of the low-lying leaves. The low-lying leaves are anything that might fall below the vase line and go into the water. You don't want any leaves or any debris that end up in the water because it will just make for a shorter vase life for your arrangement, and we want this to last as long as we possibly can so we can enjoy it. So for a large vase like this, we're gonna use it as a measuring tool because this is quite a bit larger than some of our other classes. So as you can see right there, I'm not gonna have to cut that much off. You always want your stems to touch as close to the bottom of the vase as you can. So when the water level falls, your stems are still submerged. And you should be adding the fresh water every day, so they're always underwater. But in case you forget, you wanna make sure those stems are really well submerged. So sharp angled cuts on everything, and everything that we're putting in, we're gonna angle in. We're never sticking things straight down. So we're gonna angle this in, and your mini green stems are gonna crisscross. And you want that to rest right on the edge of the vase. So we're gonna do that with all of these. So we've got 5 for this size arrangement, so we're gonna do 4 around and 1 in the center. So sharp angled cut and place that opposite the one that we just placed. And I'm doing that a lot, but these are flexible and they kind of lend themselves to that shape. So make sure they're hugging that vase. Then we are pulling off those leaves again and placing here. And then for our 4th, we are doing the same thing, sharp angled cut and place. So really we're just creating a perimeter. It's going to start to outline the size of the arrangement. Oh, we actually have 6. I'm not sure if that's correct, but that's okay. We'll put 6 in. So since we've got 6, I'm gonna go 4, I'm gonna stick with 4 there. And then I'm gonna go 2 up top. So up top means right in between, floating up high. And this is going to go right next to it. So I've got 2 up top, 4 around the side. This is creating our base. This is not a focal flower. It will pretty much become covered up by other things. So once you've gotten your mini green placed, we're going to place our greenery. And some of the greenery that we have, just making sure I'm seeing everything in my bucket. We have our cotinus or smoke bush. So this has 2 names. It's this gorgeous brown foliage. We love using it for fall. And we are gonna angle this in around our vase so we have that darkness. So I'm gonna blow it out kind of big because this arrangement is gonna be big since we have so much stuff to put in. So I'm not gonna be splitting these pieces in half because they'll just become too short. So spread that cotinus out around the vase, and I believe we have 3 pieces. So since we have 3 pieces, I'm gonna do 2 on one side and 1 on the other. Whenever there's 3 of something, I like to kind of split it up 2 and 1. That just is a little tip for making things look really nice. Since we actually have kale, I'm gonna go ahead and place our kale before I place our other daintier greenery. So we have this gorgeous purple kale. We use this in a ton of our fall arrangements. It's a really deep purple, pretty color. So with the kale, we're gonna spread this out. So right in between these mini green up front, I'm gonna nestle the kale to one side. I don't want it dead center in between, but close up to one mini green. And I'm gonna do the same thing in the back. Close up to one mini green, and then I'm gonna do one kale a little bit higher. So we get that dark accent up high as well. So I've got one kale, and one back here towards me. So now that we've got our kale in, we are gonna pull our bush ivy. So since there's a lot in the bucket, if you need to take a moment to kind of spread things out on the table next to you, you can totally do that. We are gonna do our seeded euc and our bush ivy next. I only have a couple teensy little bush ivy pieces. So let's go ahead and do that. So for this, I'm gonna cut this heavy stem off. It's not the prettiest piece I've ever seen, but I am gonna stick that right in between the dark cotinus and the dark kale. The next thing I'm gonna grab is this other piece of bush ivy, which in some cases could be used twice, but in a vase this large, I'm not gonna use it twice. So I'm gonna make a cut and then I'm gonna strip any of these leaves off. So we want that clean stem. And a good tip for bush ivy is if you pinch the leaves together, that is what becomes usable. So anything that fell below that should be pulled off. And if you're pinching it together down here, that doesn't count. So you want it to be just right there. So we're gonna spread our 3 little pieces out. I've got 1 piece nestled here, 1 here, and then I've got my final piece, which is a little sad, but that's okay. It's just a greenery accent. And it's gonna go there. And the thing with these little berries, seeds, you can cut them off if you don't like the look of them, or you can leave them on. Sometimes they're really, really pretty and they add something to it, sometimes not so much. So totally use your discretion. Next thing we're gonna do is place our seeded eucalyptus. So I have a big piece that I'm splitting a couple ways. So right there, I'm gonna have 1 piece, 2 piece, 3 piece. Same with this, anything you're pinching up here, all of this lower stuff unfortunately has to go. If you have a little bud vase at home, you can use that, but for a vase of this size, it's just gonna be too short. So you've got to pull that off. With seeded eucalyptus, it has a really pretty bounce. So I always like to kind of drape it out so it hangs and gives that really pretty texture. So I'm gonna cut my other piece into 2, right there. And then I am going to place, I've got 1 piece there, I'm gonna place this one opposite that piece. And then for the final piece, which is this guy, and actually can be used together because it's about the same height, pull off any low-lying leaves, little buds, etc. And then make a fresh cut always, every single time, and place that greenery. So now our green up has come together, and with an arrangement like this, when we've got a bucket full of gorgeous textural elements like berries, etc., I'm gonna place those in now because I think it's easier to add anything that's kind of woody stemmed like this now or fragile as opposed to after we put in all these roses and dahlias, because then these stems might break. So we're gonna add all of our berry, and this is our gorgeous privet berry. We love this for the fall. So pretty, absolutely gorgeous dark accent. So I'm gonna spread that around the vase. So 1 piece placed right here. There's no kind of perfect formula for greening up your vase. You really just want all the textures to be kind of all over the arrangement. So you want it evenly dispersed. And so I've got another piece, a really pretty bouncy piece here. I've got another piece, and I'm removing any of these little stems. You can clip these off or just pull them right off with your hands. So sticking everything out nice and wide so I don't lose that texture once I'm adding the roses and such in. And then I've got my last little piece of berry, and anything that you don't like the look of, just cut off. Sharp cut. And then let's go here by this kale. Wanted something a little bit high. Again, it's hard to see that in front of my shirt, but there you go. So we've got some little bouncy berries all over the place. And I'm also gonna go ahead and take this time to place my astilbe. Whoops, I have 1 more little berry that I'm gonna add. Once that berry is in, we can move on to our astilbe. This is something that's super fragile. Like I said, super fragile. This one's actually broken. Again, there's enough in this arrangement that I won't need it. but actually I can pull this off but really low in the arrangement. So I'm gonna add my Still Be Now, and with 3 pieces, I'm gonna split them up. So one here, and then I'm gonna pair another with that Still Be. And I want these to stick out because I want to be able to see the texture. I do not want it to get lost when we're adding everything else. Then the other Still Be is going opposite side, a little lower. You never want things even because they look like antennas. So if you're pairing things across from each other like I am, make sure one is a little lower, one's a little higher. Will look nicer for you. So now that we've done that, let's go ahead and get our roses all clean. So when cleaning our roses, we are gonna do this with every single stem until they're all ready to use. And these are our Fantasy Berry roses. This is a new variety we've been trying out. Really, really pretty purpley pink color. A little trick for roses and getting them to open up is blowing on the center of them. And for every single rose, we're gonna remove all of the leaves. Be careful of any thorns if you're stripping them without gloves. And then for the thorns, you can either pop them right off with your finger, clip them off with clippers, or you can use your floral knife to clean your stem. Just make sure you're always doing it away from you or with the stem on your surface that you're using. So those are a couple ways to clean the thorns off, but we're gonna get all of these cleaned and ready for the arrangement. So pull those leaves off. Same thing, it gets very repetitive, but it's better to just do all of this at once, and then you're ready to rock once they're all clean. So all of these, what did I say these were? The Fantasy Berries. Yeah, we've been trying this one out and we really love the color. It looks awesome in cooler toned arrangements. So we've been enjoying that one. And so cleaning all those. And then the other one we're using is our Country Blue. I absolutely love these. They're called Country Blue, but they are a really pretty pink and they have this ruffly center. They're super, super hardy rose. You can feel that by squeezing the base of it, how hardy they are. And they open up really, really beautifully. So I absolutely love these. So we're gonna do the same. Whoops, I missed a Fantasy Berry. We're gonna do the same with the Country Blue. So stripping off the leaves, careful of those thorns, and I'm gonna cut those thorns right off. And then, oh, I totally think I forgot to mention guard petals. So we're pulling off any of the guard petals, which is any sort of damaged petal that you see on the outside of the rose. With a rose like this, when it's kind of a frilly style, you can leave on more than you might think. I would just pull off anything you see that has damage. If it's not damaged, leave it on because it adds to the character of the rose. For something smaller like this, pull off anything that's damaged, anything that might be bent, that you don't like the look of. When you're pulling guard petals off, it does not hurt the integrity of the center of the rose. So it's actually just making it better. So do not worry about pulling too many off. So we're doing that with all the Country Blues too. So stripping the leaves, getting those thorns off. These are some big thorns on these guys. And then pulling those guard petals off. So pretty. Then after we've done our full-size roses, we're gonna go ahead and do this with the spray roses we have also. So now that we've got our Country Blues cleaned, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have our 9 roses cleaned. And then we're gonna do the same thing, but with the spray roses. And these are our Gem Stars. They are really pretty hot pink. You kind of look red in this video, but they are pretty magenta color. And you're gonna do the same thing you would do with a full-size rose, just ×4. So you're stripping off any of the leaves, anything that might fall into the water. Any of these little microscopic little thorns can stay as long as they don't bother you, but I wouldn't take the time to strip those off. You're not going to be touching that part of the rose anyway. Just touch the lower stem, but do be mindful that there are little thorns up top. They're kind of soft though. And you're going to do the same thing with the guard petals on these as well. So any damaged petal is going to get pulled off. And when you're pulling these petals off, you want to make sure you're pulling them all the way off, that the base is coming off as well, the base of the petal. And you're just gonna keep repeating. So same thing, over and over, until these are all ready and clean to go into the arrangement. So that is one all cleaned up. So we're gonna do the same thing over and over, and it's very repetitive work when we're cleaning these roses, but it really does make a difference. And if you like the look of them and you're only seeing a couple that are damaged, just pull off a couple. You don't need to pull off a ton, just anything that you don't like the look of it from the front. There we go. One more, and then we're done with our cleaning of the roses. So pop those off, the little guard petals, careful of the mini thorns. And once we are done with those, we're gonna add in our full-size roses into the base. So when we're adding roses into an arrangement, I like to think of everything as trios, especially if you're a beginner designer. Everything looks better when it's kind of in a staggered trio or triangle, so that's what we're gonna kind of do. I am going to place all of our fantasy berries, and then I'm gonna go in with the country blues. With a vase like this, use it as a measuring tool. Now it seems a lot bigger because we have a green up in, so use it as a measuring tool. You don't want your stems too short. You can always take them out and trim them, but you can't make them grow back. I say it every time, so just err on the long side, and then if you need to trim them, that's totally fine. So right away, I've got a spot that I want to place roses. It's nestled up right between these kales. And I always want to stagger my roses. I never want them to be directly on top or directly to the side of each other. They will end up looking like either a set of eyeballs or a snowman. So stagger them and stagger the depth of them. So I've got this one sticking out a little further than this one. And with a grouping of 3, I'm gonna do 2 of the fantasy berries, and then I lied before, I'm actually gonna do 2 fantasy berries, and then I'm gonna put in my country blues as well right now. So I've got a little trio right there. Next place I'm gonna put a trio is this spot, and then I've got one facing me that is just calling for a rose. So I'm gonna go fantasy berry low, and I like to vary what I've put where. So since I've got 2 fantasy berries, then a country blue, I'm gonna do a fantasy berry, country blue, fantasy berry, because I wanna always vary what's on top. So fresh, sharp cuts on every single thing. And we are gonna place that here. And then I don't want anything to be super mirror image of each other, so I don't want that to be, there we go. So I'm gonna do here and here. That's my 2 trios, and then I've got space right here for my last trio. And for this last trio, I'm gonna do the country blue first. Stick that out a bit. Then I'm gonna go fantasy berry on top and leaving those stems long, long, long. You can always trim after. There's my 3rd trio. So now that I've got those placed, I am going to place my spray roses. So we're gonna place these gem stars now. For spray roses, you can do this a couple ways. If you really like the symmetry and the evenness of a rounder style arrangement, you can pull off any of the sprays that fall below this height. I like the variety that we're doing. I want to make this look very interesting, so I'm going to keep those little bit shorter ones on. And then I'm going to tuck those between my two groupings here. Since we've got 3, I know I want to utilize one up top because I have a hole where my mini green are. So if I'm going to do one up top, I'm probably going to do one here. So opposite, anywhere you've got a hole, this is when you start filling those holes. So, and they have like really pretty bounce when you leave them a little bit longer. And then for my third, I'm gonna go right on top in between my 2 mini green there. So this could be a completed arrangement, but today is a Dahlia class, so we've got to pop those Dahlias in, and then we're going to end with our thistle and our ranunculus. So like I said before, Dahlias are very, very temperamental. They take a lot of labor to plant and to cultivate and to cut. So that is why they are so expensive. A lot of labor of love goes into these beautiful guys. They can pop right off at the top of their stem because they are so top heavy. So be careful if you have a wobbly one or if it feels like it's gonna fall off, that's okay. Just don't use it, you won't miss it. It is always sad when I break one at work though. But we are gonna put these puppies in right now. And I'm gonna start with my plum ones. We all have a variety of colors, but I'm just gonna start with 2 that look similar so I can disperse my color. Another thing with dahlias is you cannot manipulate the head. If you manipulate the head of the dahlia, it's gonna pop right off. So they wanna face the way they wanna face and they're not gonna turn. So when you're placing the dahlias in, you're gonna place them so they face the way you want it, but you can't force them to go a different direction. So use the angle of the stem to manipulate how it faces. So right away, I'm placing one here. One's right there. And now that we have one here, I've got one that's a similar color, so I'm gonna put it opposite. You can clip these with, clippers or use your floral knife, but always a sharp cut, and then really poke them in so they're facing you. So if you're looking at your arrangement and you're finding a spot for it, you wanna angle it in so it's facing you, the center of the flower. And that's how you get it to look right in the arrangement. So there's the other one. Let me try to turn the brightness up on this. So now, and I might ruin this by walking right back in, but now you can kind of see that I've got the one plum and the other plum. And don't be afraid to let them stick out because they like to kind of be floating on their own because they don't like the pressure of the other stems against them. So it's okay to make them kind of float out a little bit. Next ones I'm gonna put in are my reds. Again, you can do this in any order. I'm just kind of grouping these by color or putting them in by color because I want to make sure that I have little accents of every color everywhere. So I am gonna go in with my red here. Again, don't fight it. Let it live where it wants to live. I like to keep mine a little longer, but you can tuck them in. Since I've got one red here, I'm gonna go with a red down here on this side, kind of near my cotinus, because it's got a little bit of red accent on that brown foliage. So I think I want to float that out a little bit. And then once I've got those placed, I've got my last two dahlias. So with our last two, these are kind of a fun, brighter color. So anywhere you have a hole that you feel like needs a little something, which I've got one facing me. There's a hole right here. So that's where I'm gonna place this one. Like that. And then I've got my last little guy, which is very, very fragile. So be careful with the pink ones. But I see a spot right over here that is just calling for the last one. So that is the final one. Now that we have our dahlias in, you can adjust anything in your arrangement as you see fit. You don't want to move things around too much because things will start to break, but you can always adjust anything that you don't love. So for instance, I'm just trimming that dahlia down a little bit. I want it to go a little lower in the arrangement, but if you feel like you're fighting with the chicken wire, then take it out and go again. Sharp cut. Every time you reinsert it. There we go. So now my dahlias are in. Love, love, love these flowers so much. And we're coming to the end of the season. So if you've joined this class, this is like seriously the best time of year for these flowers. But their growth is slowing down quite a bit, which is always sad for us when dahlia season is coming to an end. The next thing we're gonna add in is our Plum Ranunculus, one of my favorite flowers, and the colors of it. And I actually unfortunately have a broken stem, but that's okay. If you ever have a broken ranunculus stem, there's a little trick. You can use a wire and stick it up the stem. I don't have a wire handy right here. And I'm gonna stick it in my arrangement as if it's not broken, just to show you guys kind of where I would place them. So let's just pretend that it's not drooping. So if it's broken though, again, there's so much stuff in this bucket, it's gonna be totally fine. So since I've got this really bright one, I wanna pull that little bit of darkness right next to it. So I'm gonna place that one there. And then I want to have one on the opposite side, so the side that's currently facing me. And I really need to sharpen my knife. So we're gonna place that here, and I'm gonna put it right below this red. Make sure all your stems are, so pretty. Make sure all your stems are in the vase. Do a little check around. And the last thing we're gonna add in is our thistle. Our thistle, I don't know how I want to use this. I think this piece is big enough for me to use these separate pieces. So I'm going to cut these offshoots. That is not always the case, so do not cut it unless you know you can use it, because otherwise you'll just lose the stem. So right away, I'm just going to disperse my thistle. I love this blue color, and I just want them to be really fun little textural elements. Anything that's short needs to stay close to the top of your vase and the bottom of your arrangement. So anything that's too short, you cannot use because it probably won't be touching the water. Your stems need to be as long as possible. So same with this one. Oh, I don't know. I'm gonna remove this low lying leaves, and I'm actually gonna keep this one intact, but I'm gonna clip this middle guy out. Clip that middle guy out, and then I'm gonna use this guy together. So right now, I'm gonna put this guy up high. So I get that really cool thistle texture up high. And that. So then, once your thistle's in, that is it for our arrangement. I hope you enjoyed this workshop. It's always a pleasure teaching you all, and we have some upcoming workshops that are on the site, and we might add a few more, either in person or virtual. We haven't decided yet, but stay tuned for those. Make sure you're caring for your arrangement by adding fresh water every single day, and you can check the water levels simply by lifting up near the mini green and feeling for it. So you always want to keep it as close to the top as possible without, you know, spilling all over your counter. But I hope you enjoy these. This is like the quintessential berry toned fall arrangement. Saying goodbye to Dahlia season, sadly, but this is a beautiful, beautiful mix of blooms, and I hope you enjoy it for as long as you possibly can. And as things kind of start to crumble, or you notice things are dying maybe more quickly than something else, you can just yank that bloom and toss it, and it'll help everything else kind of last a little longer. So just be mindful and take care of your arrangement as you enjoy it over the next few days. So thank you so much for joining, and we will see you next time.